وتلك القرى أهلكناهم لما ظلموا وجعلنا لمهلكهم موعدا وإذ قال موسى لفتاه لا أبرح حتى أبلغ مجمع البحرين أو أمضي حقبا فلما بلغا مجمع بينهما نسيا حوتهما فاتخذ سبيله في البحر سرابا فلما جاوزا قال لفتاه آتنا غداءنا لقد لقينا من سفرنا هذا نصبا قال أرأيت إذ أوينا إلى الصخرة فإني نسيت الحوت وما أنسانيه إلا الشيطان أن أذكره واتخذ سبيله في البحر عجبا قال ذلك ما كنا نبغ فارتدا على آثارهما قصصا فوجدا عبدا من عبادنا آتيناه رحمة من عندنا وعلمناه من لدنا علما قال له موسى هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا قال إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا وكيف تصبر على ما لم تحط به خبرا قال ستجدني إن شاء الله صابرا ولا أعصي لك أمرا قال فإن اتبعتني فلا تسألني عن شيء حتى أحدث لك منه ذكرا.
Just like the former communities we destroyed for doing wrong, we set an appointed time for their destruction. Moses said to his servant, I will not rest until I reach the place where the two seas meet, even if it takes me years. But when they reached the place where the two seas meet, they had forgotten all about their fish, which made its way into the sea and swam away. They journeyed on, and then Moses said to his servants, Give us our morning meal. This journey of ours is very tiring. And the servant said, Remember when we were resting by the rock? I forgot the fish. Satan made me forget to pay attention to it, and it must have made its way into the sea. How strange. Moses said, Then that was the place we were looking for. So the two turned back, retraced their footsteps, and found one of our servants, a man to whom we had granted our mercy and whom we had given knowledge of our own. Moses said to him, May I follow you so that you can teach me some of the right guidance you have been taught. The man said, You will not be able to bear with me patiently. How could you be patient in matters beyond your knowledge? Moses said, God willing, you will find me patient. I will not disobey you in any way. The man said, If you follow me then, do not query anything I do before I mention it to you myself.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah wa ba'd. All praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his praise and blessings and peace be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his family, his companions, and his followers to the day of judgment. Make sure that you disconnect this. Yeah. Give a feedback. The first verse, before starting the story of Musa alayhi salam and al-Khadr, وَتِلْكَ الْقُرَى أَهْلَكْنَاهُمْ لَمَّا ظَلَمُوا. And these towns, nations, population, some term translated, we destroyed them when they did dhulm, when they did wrong. A dhulm, transgression. And since we'll be talking about this is a lot, we mentioned this a lot of times. What's dhalamu here means? Let's see what you guys say. We many times we talked about the word dhulm. Kafar, a dhulm, one of the first meaning of dhulm, it means kufr, disbelief. So when they became disbelievers, the question, aren't they originally disbelievers? They were disbelievers before the messengers came to them. So what did they have more that they deserve to be destroyed? That their kufr, their disbelief maybe in the beginning was out of ignorance, out of culture. They found their family and their parents believe in these deities and these religions, and they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't know Allah azza wa jalla. But after Allah sent the messengers and clarify things to them and make it clear to them and give them reminders, give them signs, give them proofs, and they insist in the kufr, that's where they deserve the punishment. That's number one. Number two, also you can cite after they openly start speaking about their kufr, when they don't hide it, when they don't feel shame of it anymore, when they're proud of it, when they say it openly that we disbelieve in God, we disbelieve in His books, we don't disbelieve in all His religions, when they openly reject the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one level of dhulm. What's the next level of transgressions? What's the next level of dhulm? It is the sins. It is the sins that you commit. That every sin, it's a form of dhulm against yourself. So those people openly starting doing their sins. They don't care about it. They don't care about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't care about the rules. That's why they deserve to be destroyed. Not only that, that the sins that is related to you personally, or the major sins or the evil sins, but also the sins that involve any form of injustice towards others. Toward others like what? Toward others, human beings, toward other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And can you give me some examples of the dhulm towards others today? Can just stealing people's money. And the worst form of it is stealing the public's money. When people start stealing the public money. And that can be done by government, can be done by corporates, and can be done by so many formats today in the world that you see stealing people's wealth. And today people lose money in no time, especially if you follow all these games and tricks that they do on Wall Street and these hedge funds, companies, and how they can take people's millions of dollars in no time and nobody even hold them responsible for it. And after 9/11, or after in the end of the previous administration, we know how the crash in our economy, for example, here happened, and we never heard anybody was held responsible. We didn't hear anybody was put in jail for that. Taking public's money, and look at the world. In many countries today in the world, that people take the public's money or mess with the public's money, and very few they will be held accountable really for it. It's amazing when you see a poor country, like third world country, and you see that the leaders of it, they own in Swiss bank $47 billion and $20 billion. And just a country like Afghanistan, a broken country. One of their presidents in Dubai airport stopped carrying with him more than $10 million in his handbags. Where does that money came from? That's dhulm. That's dhulm to the nation, dhulm to the people. It's not dhulm to be rich, but dhulm is to be rich at the expenses of making people's poor. of taking people's wealth, of taking people's money, of taking opportunities from other people to grow. That's dhulm, and that's not allowed. So what other form of dhulm other than the money? Taking or stealing the money. What can be other dhulm as well? Clear form of dhulm that you see. Huh?
Shirk.
We did done also shirk. We done with shirk, we done with sins. We talk about the dhulm and against other human beings. Killing innocent people. That's one of the worst forms. That's worse than taking somebody's money, is to take somebody's life. No doubt. And the worst form of dhulm is to kill your own children, to kill your own baby, and to kill your basically your family members, and go farther than that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meant the Prophet when he was asked, what's the worst sin? He said, أَن تَقْتُلَ وَلَدَكَ, that you kill your own son. And killing in general today, also it is another form of dhulm that we see it so public today, and people die. Wallahi, people even don't know why they've been killed for. When you hear about what's happening in the world today, people just shot and killed, and it is very sad that human beings were worth just the price of a bullet, 25 cents. That's what you worth. It is sad when human beings are considered a collateral damage. Today you hear how the wars that took place in our history, in modern history, humanity today, and until the recent days, it is a shame. And I remember told you last week how World War I and II, it is unbelievable. Just World War II have 60 million people were killed. 60 million people were killed. It's around 2.5% of the population of the world were killed at that time. And the World War I, that's about 9 million people were killed in that war. Look at ongoing conflict today in the world. Look at what's so-called suicide bombs. Look at killing innocent people traveling or in the market or in public place, or even places of worship. And how today people justify killing, even it's one of the worst form of dhulm. One of the form of dhulm today, how even some leaders and governments kill their own countries, kill their own people, like what we see in Syria today. What can be worse dhulm than what you see today? That people killed by the hand of their own leaders. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that a woman, he saw her in hellfire, carrying a cat, and that cat scratching her face and her chest. Why? Because she locked that cat until the cat died. Ibn al-Qayyim commented in this hadith by saying, so what do you think of a person or a leader will lock up a human being until death? And that human being is an innocent person. I don't know how much you know, when Libya, for example, collapsed, they found people in cells under the ground and under the palace of the previous president of Libya. They would be just left there to die long time ago. 20, 30, 40 years. Allah, and how long they've been dead. They just left. They were left there to die. So the killing people, it is one of the form of injustice that we see happening in the world today. What else other than taking money, taking people's life? What's not death, but closer to kind of death? To harm someone physically. That's a form of bullying someone. You know, the gangs work, when they beat someone up, when they hit someone that's unfairly, that's dhulm. That's a form of dhulm as well. Beating people and torturing people, even without killing them, that's a form of dhulm. And how popular this today in the world. You know, a young man in our community is not someone far away. A young man in our community was telling me how he was tortured in Pakistan. That the officer that he was torturing him, he took his blood, he took it in his vein, he run through his vein gasoline. Gasoline that you put in the car, he run it in his vein. And he said, you know what? I can light you up. He's laughing, like literally, I can light you up. And that young man has to change his blood every month. Otherwise he died. A permanent damage to his life. For what reason? For nothing. He even doesn't know why until today. You want to talk about torture? I also met another guy who was tortured in one of these countries, third world country, where I found not a single nail toe that he had. All been pulled out. And he was telling me how he used to pull it out, and after they pull his nail toe, they put needles. And basically put the needles in it. So how after you pull your nail out, that soft skin, they put needles. That, and there is people professional. They made a life of torturing people. Can you believe? Maybe, inshallah, may Allah protect us. We don't have things like, even can you imagine that we talk about sometimes people upset because the president have made torturing illegal. Then we have people running for presidency today, and I don't want to make my class very political, but it's shame when you see someone today will say that I will legalize not only torturing potential or suspects because he's not convicted yet, not only torturing suspects, I'll torture them and I'll torture their families. It's terrifying how human being, when you unleash the human being, how can be worse than animal? Dhulm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about human being, Dhulm. He's a transgressor. One form of this dhulm, torturing and harming people physically, that what's known today as bullying others, hitting others, who didn't do any wrong, who don't deserve you to be hit or to be beaten. If this is a family or it is friends or people that you don't know and so forth. What other form of injustice toward others today we see in the world around us? Come on, what do you see around the world happen today? What other form of injustice?
Some people very poor and very rich.
But very poor and very rich, that's how Allah created people.
No, they have no
there will be always poor and rich.
They have no food to eat. I'm talking about this kind of people.
But what is the injustice? Having a poor and rich, that's part of life. But what's the injustice?
Interest.
Huh?
Interest.
I don't know. Injustice. What another form of injustice that you see in the world today? Yeah, we said that basically killing children, like abortion, for example, that's a form of killing. So any type of killing children. So you guys said taking somebody's money, stealing, and you said killing, and you guys said, I said torturing, harming physically someone. What else?
Discrimination.
Discrimination, racism. Racism is a form of injustice. To be racist, to judge, to treat people differently based on their color and skin color. Treating people differently because of their ethnicity, because of their background, because of their social status, because of whatever reason that is not fair and just, because of their religion, and you treat them unfairly. And that's a form of injustice. كان إذا سرق فيهم الضعيف أقاموا عليه الحد وإذا سرق فيهم الغني تركوه. When a rich man steals, they let him go. But when a poor man steals, he will be put in jail. A young African-American kid caught with marijuana, sent to sentence and put in jail for a very long time. But if you're not, maybe you will just go with the slap and the rest. When there is something like that exists in our society, that's dangerous. It's a form of injustice. When me, as a father, I just discriminate because this man is a black and this man is white, just because of the color of skin. I'm not willing to marry you to my daughter. I'm not willing, just no other reason. The only reason is this he looked black, or he looked white, or he looked Hispanic, or he looked Chinese. And discriminate between people based on that. Or because he is Arab or not Arab. Or he's Hyderabadi or he's not. If you're not from Hyderabad Sharif, you don't count. So that's the form of discrimination. It is absolutely a form of dhulm.
Punjabi discrimination.
Yes, what else?
False testimony, slander.
One of the forms of dhulm is slander, false testimony. When you give a false testimony, shahadat az-zur, definitely it's a form of dhulm against other people. Very good. I think one of the injustice that I think Brother Mahmoud is trying to say about being rich and poor, it is when the society do not give a fair opportunity for its citizen to grow. That's a form of injustice. When you don't give fair chance for people to grow, fair chance, one of the form of beautiful justice we have in America, that everybody have a fair chance to make himself from nothing and to be something. In many countries, you don't have that. If you're not born to a powerful family, if you're not born to a family who's already, well connected, it is almost impossible for you to reach that level unless you steal or you're a gang or you do something very bad. Otherwise, there is almost zero chance for you to make something out of yourself. That's a form of injustice, and unfortunately, it exists. I think one of the form of injustice when you don't have a choice to make in regard to those who rules you. When you don't have a vote, when don't have power to cast your vote, you don't have the power to express your opinion. That's a form of injustice. When you not have the freedom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala born you with as a free man and a free woman. And freedom is not only the opposite of slavery. The freedom of the freedom to express yourself. The freedom you talk. That's why the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا بوركت أمة لا يطالب الضعيف فيها حقه غير متعتع. Allah would never bless a nation. The weak person in that nation cannot stand up and talk about his rights and ask for his right freely, with no fear. Also, one of the forms of injustice that when the minorities' rights are not protected, when the majority abuse the minority. And in any form, that's why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam cared for the minority rights. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, he talked about a minority. What a minority used to live in the Muslim community? People known as Ahl al-Dhimma. The Christian and Jews who live in the Muslim society. They are minorities. How the Prophet ﷺ protected their rights? He said that whoever abuse one of them, one of those non-Muslim who live among you, أَنَا خَصْمُهُ وَحَجِيجُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, I will be against that person in the Day of Judgment. Can you imagine? You're a prosecutor in the Prophet ﷺ will be your prosecutor in the court of the Judgment Day. will be standing against you who want to be in that position. Minorities. That's why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam talked about the right of the slaves, the right of the weak in the community. And the last words heard from him before he died, telling people to be good to women, be good to servants, be good to the weak among themselves. You know, one form of injustice, one form of ظلم, عدم نصرة المظلوم. When you see someone suffering, when you see someone abused, and you remain silent, and you turn your face away, and you start calculating your own personal benefits, when you don't stand up for what is right, that's a form of injustice in the society. And that's wrong. And any nation, any people, any community don't care for that, they have committed a form of injustice. You know what's injustice? When you make falsehood and truth equal. When you make righteousness and sins equal. When you make impurity and purity equal. When you make halal and haram equal. When you make sunnah and bid'ah equal. When you make Allah and the shaitan equal. When you treat them the same. When you see them in the same level. That's dhulm. That's injustice. And I want you just to imagine how many forms of injustice exist in your life today, in your home, in your community, in our society, in our nation, in other nations. And you will see why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have not blessed these nations. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give barakah to these communities, to these movements, to this da'wah. Because dhulm can be done in the level of, not only don't look at it as a leaders and government, look at it starting from your own action. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy your life if you are dhalim, if you're an unjust person. If you're not just to your parents, if you're not fair with them, if you're not fair with your children, if you're not fair to your brothers and sisters, if you're not fair to your community, if you're not fair with the people that they work with you, it starts with you, then your family, then goes to the community, then goes to the society, goes to the city, to the country, to the nations, and so forth. You know, when we look at all these diseases, all these natural disasters, all these problems that are happening in the world, economical problem or social problems like the rise of crimes, the rise of social issues like divorce, suicide, you know, divorce and family broken families everywhere you look at in the world today. You see that percentage is just rising, the percentage of divorce, to the extent that I was reading that in many Muslim countries today, I was reading the statistics, that an average divorce case every 19 seconds.
Muslim country?
Yes.
Wow.
19 seconds, there's a case of divorce. You talk about 48% divorce rate in countries like United Arab Emirates, around that number in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt. It's crazy. It's very terrifying. One of the reasons I think our divorce rate in America is around 43, 44, something like that. And you know it's dropped a little bit. You know why? Because the rate of marriage dropped. That's why the divorce dropped. But all these things that you see happening in the world today, it is part of the destructions, part of the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the nation. And Allah said this verse, which is so scary. وَجَعَلْنَا لِمَهْلِكِهِمْ مَوْعِدًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we appointed a fixed time for their destruction. That's why we as a Muslim community, one of the things, the role that we play, that we make sure to ensure justice in the society. Because as long as there is justice in the society, as long as this society is protected from being completely destroyed. But if injustice became the main thing, wallahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed this nation. And just by looking at what's happening in the world today, reflecting for a moment about what's happening in the world today, you will see عاقبة الظلم, the outcome of the dhulm, the injustice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said and told us, وَمَا كُنَّا مُهْلِكِي الْقُرَى بِظُلْمٍ إِلَّا وَأَهْلُهَا ظَالِمُونَ. Allah destroyed the villages and the nations and the cities and the nations. When? Why? Because of the injustice of its people. فَكَأَيٍّ مِّن قَرْيَةٍ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and how many a city did we destroy while it was committing wrong? فَكَأَيٍّ مِّن قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا وَهِيَ ظَالِمَةٌ فَهِيَ خَاوِيَةٌ عَلَى عُرُوشِهَا وَبِئْرٌ مُعَطَّلَةٌ وَقَصْرٌ مَشِيدٌ. So it is now fallen into ruin, and how many an abandoned well, and how many a lofty place. And these lofty places, the wells, are been abandoned and left empty after Allah destroyed the people of these cities. فَتِلْكَ بُيُوتُهُمْ خَاوِيَةٌ بِمَا ظَلَمُوا. So those are their houses, dissolved because of the ruin of the wrong they have done. After that, the story of Musa started with Al-Khadr. Let's start in verse number 60. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ لَا أَبْرَحُ حَتَّى أَبْلُغَ مَجْمَعَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ أَوْ أَمْضِيَ حُقُبًا. And mention when Musa said to his servant, I will not cease, not travel, until I reach the junction of the two seas, or continue for a long period of time. What that means, before we go to what that verse exactly means, I want to say that the story of Musa and Al-Khadr, the Prophet ﷺ was not asked about. You remember the whole Surah Al-Kahf? They came and they asked the Prophet about certain things. They asked him about the story of the people of the cave. They asked him about the king, Dhul Qarnayn, and they asked him about the Ruh, but they never asked about Musa. Who asked the Prophet ﷺ? The people of Mecca. After what? After consulting the Jews. The Jews suggested these questions to know if Muhammad ﷺ is a prophet or not. And they asked another question, fourth question about the child, how the baby boy comes and how the pregnancy result of a baby boy or a baby girl. Anyway, but this story never been asked about. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it here before He mentioned the last story of the surah, which is the story of the king Dhul Qarnayn. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it, the ulama rahimahullah said, what's the purpose of bringing the story of Musa al-Khadr here? He said, since the story of Dhul Qarnayn, the king Dhul Qarnayn, is about Dhul Qarnayn traveling the world, okay, to expand his kingdom, and travel the world to stretch his power, to gain more power through armies and conquering land. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the story of someone also who traveled a long distance, but not to expand his kingdom, not to expand his army, but to expand his knowledge, which is more powerful than expanding your army and being more strong, having a bigger army or strong or bigger country. Also, one of the reasons this story is very effective and comes in the right place, because the Jews did not in the Medina, some of them believed in Muhammad ﷺ, and some of them refused. And why did they refuse? They said, we are better than the Arabs. We are the children of Musa. And Musa is the best man. And we the children of Israel. We are the follower of Musa. We have the Torah. How someone like us will follow an Arab person, an any person like Muhammad? They always see themselves higher than the Arabs. Okay? And this story telling them that your prophet Musa have followed someone who's not a Jew. Have followed someone, maybe lineage-wise he was lower than Musa. Maybe fame-wise he's lower than Musa. But still he has knowledge that Musa had. Musa was not arrogant like you. When Musa was told there is knowledge to learn from the Khadr, he went and he learned from him. And he was, as of the Quran, inviting them to listen to Muhammad. They might find with Muhammad ﷺ knowledge that it will benefit them as Musa learned from Al-Khadr. Also, Al-Ulama rahimahumullah said one of the reasons could be, since the Jews asked about Dhul Qarnayn, the king, and Dhul Qarnayn do not represent anything to do with the Jews. Dhul Qarnayn's story, it's a story of a king, a great king. So what is so big deal of knowing the details of this story? As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reprimanding them and said, if you want to ask, you should have asked about the story of your own prophet, which is you have more knowledge of than anyone else. And there is more lessons to be learned from the story of Musa, more than the lessons that can be learned from the story of the king Dhul Qarnayn. Also, Al-Ulama said, after Allah mentioned the story of Adam and the shaitan, and shows how a shaitan's arrogance led him to kufr, how the humility of Musa led him to learn more, led him to elevate his level of being a student of knowledge in front of Al-Khadr. Two different pictures. And that shows you the way of the believers is the way of learning, the way of humility. And the way of the disbeliever is the way of arrogance, the way of rejection of the truth. Also, Al-Ulama said, one of the benefits, because the people of Mecca always used to say, we're not going to sit with Muhammad until his friends leave. I mentioned that a couple of times to you. They said his friends are lower than us, we are higher than them, we're smarter than them, we are richer than them, we're from better family than them. We're Arab, they are slaves from Rome and from Bسيونى. I'm not going to sit with them. So Allah gave this story to the people of Quraysh to listen, to see someone like Musa. Guys, you know what Musa means? When I say Musa, you know what Musa means? There is no prophet was mentioned in the Quran more than Musa. There is no one Allah talk about more than Musa. That means something, isn't it? He is the one who come in the day of judgment with more follower than anyone else after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Musa, the one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala don't want even to have someone in between when he speaks to him. When Allah wants to speak to Musa, he doesn't even want Jibreel to be in the middle. Allah spoke to him directly. وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا. Can you imagine how dear he is to Allah? Musa alayhi salam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he wanted to give him not even the revelation in the form of Torah, when he wanted to send it to him in a written format, he wrote it with his own hand. The Torah written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand, and it was handled to Musa. What do you want more than that? That's Musa alayhi salam. So when I say Musa, you need to understand the value of the person I'm talking about. With all this, a person meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and talks to Allah directly. Can you imagine you reach that level? Then you go to someone who's unknown. Nobody knows his name even. Never heard of before. Not from your own people. And you go with full humility and you say, I want to follow you. I want to be one of your followers. I want to learn from you. La ilaha illallah. And guess what? That man is not rich, is not fancy. He's a very simple person, live a very simple life. It's a lesson for the people of Mecca not to be arrogant. For the people of the Jews in Medina not to be arrogant. And to come and to sit and to listen and to learn from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And definitely that's a lesson to all of us as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts by saying, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ لَا أَبْرَحُ حَتَّى أَبْلُغَ مَجْمَعَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ أَوْ أَمْضِيَ حُقُبًا. The story, it's amazing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He mentions a story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it in different ways. Sometimes Allah gives you the story from the beginning. And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the story from the middle. And sometimes He gives you the story from the end and He go back to the beginning. So the stories are mentioned in very different ways in the Quran. Here, there is no introductions. Didn't tell us why even Musa want to go to Al-Khadr. How did he even know about Al-Khadr? Didn't tell us anything. It just put us in the middle of the scene. You know how sometimes a movie, you start the movie and the movie starts from like the middle. Doesn't give you introduction. You just into the action directly. You know, it just makes you part of the scene in the middle of the scene. It's a very powerful way of telling the story. And instead of you just giving, Musa was thinking of, no, he just put you in the middle. Now Musa was traveling with his servant and they are in the middle of the road. But what had made them take the journey, first of all, was not mentioned. Put you into the action directly, just to get you excited. And mention وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى, when Musa said, and when Musa said, and referring to what? The ulama rahimahullah said, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى مَعْطُوفًا عَلَى وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ. Goes back about 20 verses when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, when we told the angels, bow yourself to Adam. So He connected the two stories together. العلماء يقولون هذا من باب عطف القصة على القصة. He connected them together. That's why I told you earlier, some ulama said the purpose from the story was what? Was to tell you, to show you the way of the arrogance and the way of the people of tawadu, humility. And he said, and also remember, as we ask you to remember, or I usually ask you to mention to them the story of the angels, we're now asking you, Muhammad, to tell them the story of Musa so they can learn from it. And what is the beginning of the story? This is something that was mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and we will read it very soon. When Musa said to his servant, Musa, who is Musa? He is Musa ibn Imran. Musa ibn Imran, the prophet that was sent to the children of Israel, the one I just mentioned earlier. And there is no other Musa mentioned in the Quran, by the way. The only Musa mentioned in the Quran is this one. And in the Sunnah al-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the Hadith, is clearly stated. Why I'm even saying this? Because believe me, believe it or not, there is some people said this is not Musa, the one who Allah spoke to. And among some of the Jews said that this story doesn't belong to Musa ibn Imran. They said this is Musa ibn Mansha, the son of Joseph, the son of Jacob, Yaqub, not Musa ibn Imran. That's why ulama rahimahullah mentioned this specifically to say that this is not true and this is absolutely false. The Quran speaks of Musa, the prophet of the children of Israel. And his servant, Fatah, Huna, is another prophet. Who is the other prophet that is servant to Musa? Yusha ibn Nun. Who's Yusha ibn Nun? Yusha ibn Nun is one of the prophets that Allah have sent to the children of Israel. And he's the one who carried on the mission of leading the children of Israel to the promised land, to the land that Allah promised that they will gather in it, which is that Jerusalem. Because Musa alayhi salam died before reaching Jerusalem. And he was buried outside Jerusalem before reaching Jerusalem. He saw Jerusalem because that was his wish in life, at least to see it with his eyes. So Musa, his wish in life, to see Jerusalem with his eyes. Isn't that should be a wish for every believer? Anyway, so he died before reaching there. And who led Bani Israel, who left Egypt, who led them to enter the city was Yusha ibn Nun. And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the sun never stopped moving except in two cases. One of it was for Yusha ibn Nun, for the Prophet Yusha ibn Nun. Allah freezes the sun, freezes the time. In other words, the time frozen for Yusha ibn Nun just for him to pray. So he will not miss the prayer and he will enter Jerusalem on time. Anyway, he was in the company of Musa alayhi salam in this trip to learn and to serve Musa, because Musa is older than him. Then, as I said, so this is the servant. And Musa alayhi salam, here, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu and Abi was told that a man by the name Nufa al-Bikari claimed that Musa here is not Musa the son of Imran, is Musa ibn Mansha. Then he said, Ibn Mas'ud, كَذَبَ عَدُوُّ اللَّهِ, is lying, the enemy of Allah. And he reported that Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said. And here the hadith will tell you the story why Musa took the trip. He came and he addressed the children of Israel. And he said to the people, he said, who is the most knowledgeable person? Who's the most knowledgeable person exists among in the face of the earth? Then he said to him, he answered himself, he said, that will be me. I am the most knowledgeable person in the face of the earth. فَعَتِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. Allah was not happy with that statement that he made. Because a statement of what?
Arrogant.
Not only arrogant, but a statement that you claim something you have no knowledge of because you don't know all human beings. Once I asked Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah, I said to him, Sheikhna, is it true that you said, Sheikh al-Albani, which is very famous Sheikh al-Hadith, also passed away, he is the most knowledgeable scholars on the face of this earth. In ilm al-Hadith, in the science of Hadith, did he ever say that? Then the Sheikh paused on him. looked toward my direction. He's blind. He's like said, I never said that. And I shall never ever say something like that. Son, I don't know all the scholars who live in the face of the earth. How can I say that? But I said, I don't know personally anyone among the living scholars who know the hadith more than Shaykh Allah. Very precise. Adab. Respect. He doesn't make that general statement. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he was not happy with Musa's answer since he did not refer the knowledge to Allah. Then Allah revealed to Musa. It's not arrogant. Why? Because if it's arrogant, the following story will not take place. But he thought that he is the most knowledgeable. He forgot that he should refer to Allah. I don't know who, Allah knows the best who's the most knowledgeable person. Who the person is most knowledgeable in the face of the earth or among humans. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, I have one of my servants at Majma'ul Bahrain, at the area where the junction of the two seas meet each other. He said, he has more knowledge than you. What Musa replied to Allah? He didn't say, how come? No. He said immediately, وَكَيْفَ لِي بِهِ? How can I reach him? Yes. What an attitude. What an attitude. This is the same attitude also that we heard in Abdullah ibn Mas'ud when he said, Wallahi, لو أعلم أن رجلا, if I know someone who knows about a verse or about the history of a verse, sabab al-nuzul, why this verse was revealed, or a Prophet ﷺ gave an explanation to a verse in the Quran that I'm not aware of, and that person can be reached, I will never sleep until I reach that person's place. I will travel no matter how far he is, how high he is, I will reach that person and I will ask him about this verse to learn from him. That's the attitude. Just saying, someone has more knowledge than me, I will be just a shadow. I will go learn from that person. And that's the attitude of Musa alayhi salam. Go ahead.
Allah.